We've got Toronto, Philadelphia, 3-4 on the rotation. Philadelphia, slight home favorite, minus 115 in this game total. Sitting at 5.5 pretty much across the board. I think there's a good spot for Toronto. I really do. I think there's got to be a time that they get out of this little malaise they're in. I didn't think they played that bad of a hockey game against St. Louis the other night. 2-1 loss in overtime. Should have won, could have won that game. Alex Steen ties it late in the final minute. A bad play, I guess you could say, by Mitch Marner. Poor job on the back check, allowing St. Louis, Vince Dunn, to score the game winner in overtime. Mike Babcock said he liked his team's defensive effort a lot more in that game. It was like a playoff game, very tight, no room to move out there on the ice. That Blues-Leafs game the other night. But Mike Babcock really did like the defensive effort. He just says we just got to do a better job finding a way to win and finishing these close, tight games, because that's the kind of games you're going to have to be able to thrive in come April in playoff hockey. Philadelphia had a nice run. Their winning streak snapped in a big way by the New York Rangers the other night. 5-1 loss to New York, which was an overplay for both Dana and I in that game. Rangers and Flyers, that one worked out pretty well that night. But again, they walked into a Rangers team that really hadn't played well defensively. 12 goals allowed. Finally, the Rangers clamped down, woke up, said this can't happen anymore. We've got to be a little bit more respectful on the defensive end of the ice, and they played much better defensive hockey and beating Philadelphia 5-1. And like I said with Philadelphia, when things are rolling and they're on that winning streak, you bet on them. When they lose a game, you get that sense with Philadelphia, one loss could turn into 8. Because we've seen that time and time again with Philadelphia this season. One loss can turn into 8 with this team. They're one of the streakiest bastards in the NHL, this Philadelphia team, capable of a 6-game winning streak, equally capable of a 6-game losing streak. I think the losing streak will reach 2 tonight. I like the spot for Toronto. They have nothing to be ashamed about with the loss to St. Louis, because I thought they've cleaned up a lot of the parts of their game defensively. Clearly, they worked on that following their bye week. They've now got that first game out of their bye after the break out of their system. I think you're going to get a good effort from them. I'm on Toronto here, minus the 105, near even money in this game. I think we've got some other guys involved in Toronto, Philly. Yes, Andrew and Dana. Let's go to Andrew McGinnis. Your take on this Leafs-Flyers game here tonight in Philly.
Yeah, good morning, guys. For this one particularly, I just really think that the over is the best play of this one right now. I think that, like you said, Ian, Philadelphia, they're one of those teams where they're really, really high or they're really, really low. And I think right now, whether they're winning or they're losing, you're really catching them putting the puck in the back of the net. And I think talent is there in this team. Not everyone really thought they're top 5 team, top 10. But with Giroux, Couturier, Voracek, even on this, putting up those numbers on a daily basis, they're one of those guys. Like I always say this: if you're a fantasy player, if you're one of those guys that like to take anytime goal scorer type prop bet, I mean, you look at Couturier tonight, look at Voracek, look at those guys for right now, and this should be a head-to-head, be fast-paced, exciting matchup versus the team. And just looking at the stats here, Philadelphia has actually grown their stats over the past couple of weeks here. They've really been up with their numbers. They're averaging 0.9 goals per game. Toronto averaging 0.2 goals. So scoring has never really been Toronto's issue in my eyes, and I think Babcock's really been kind of narrowing that down on that with the team, saying, look, we don't need 4 or 5 goals per game. We're worried about winning the game at hand. So he knows that isn't their biggest issue. He knows their biggest issue is defense and kind of getting back on defense, forwards, back checking. But I just don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. I think Philadelphia is one of those teams right now where they're trending towards those high scoring, trending turnover affair type games. And Toronto's been back on the overtrain as well. It's gone over and for the last 5. And Philadelphia scored the last 5 as well. And their last 7 games in general. So for me right now, there's too much talent on these two teams in general. Looking at their lineups, guys, both these two teams should be well rested, should be ready to go for this one. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I think there's actually a decent rivalry with them. Everyone always jokes about rivalry. Are they dead? Are they still alive? Sports. Actually, good game here, guys. Really fast paced. I don't really expect much defense whatsoever in this.
All right. To me, it sounded like someone was jumping on Andrew's cord there or something in terms of his audio, but I think we got the gist of it. He's on Leafs Flyers over the total here in this particular hockey game tonight. Dana Lane's also involved with the Leafs and Flyers. Popular game with the Ice Guys tonight, so hopefully that's a good thing. Dana, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, well, it looks like every single one of us is going to be on something different. So at least between you and I, Ian, somebody's going to be happy. And I get exactly what you're saying. I mean, this Philadelphia team, not only this season, but we've seen it last season as well, be extremely streaky. So you never really quite know what you're going to get out of Dave Hackstall's team. But what I do know is, they dropped their last game to the Rangers 5-1. But besides that, as you pointed out, they've been playing extremely well. They still remain 3 points behind the Penguins for the last wild card spot in the East. So, hopefully they're not going to go back into a tailspin, because there's a lot on the line here, and you really tell a lot about. I love to make notes about teams when they're in spots where it's almost a must win. Or I love to make notes about teams when coaches go crazy, because if teams don't respond after coaches call them out, that really is telling me something about what a team is made up of internally. But Philly's won 5 of 7 games. During that streak, they've averaged almost 4 goals a game. That streak does include huge victories on the road against New Jersey, against Tampa Bay. And we talked about this in the last Ice Guys show about moving pieces when we jumped on the over just for this fact. And we saw Gostisbehere come back and play with Provorov, and they were back together again on the top pairing, and they didn't play well together after Provorov had been playing with Haig for so long. I didn't think that either one of them. Actually, I thought Gostisbehere played better than Provorov did, and I think it's just there's an adjustment period, because between Haig and Gostisbehere, they're two different type of defensemen. So I think it takes a game to get used to each other once again. I do think that this is a game where they get used to each other. And what does that mean? Well, that means that both of these guys kind of have a sixth sense about where the other is as far as jumping up into the play, which Gostisbehere likes to do a lot more than Haig did. I do know this, and of course, when you're talking about the Leafs, you're talking about one of the best offensive teams in the league. But I also feel like that top line for the Flyers has been, completely overlooked. Claude Giroux has 15 points in his last 10 games, and this is the guy, if you remember last year, had a horrific year. In fact, this season already, he's got as many goals in 44 games as he did last year in 82 games. He's been sensational on that first line with Couturier, who's been a point-a-game center, and also Travis Konechny as well. So, I mean, that top line for Philadelphia, when you talk about the best lines in the NHL, I think that gets overlooked quite a bit. And plus, this is not a spot or an arena, the Wells Fargo Center is not a spot where Toronto's had a ton of success. In fact, they've dropped 11 out of their last 16 there. So I'm more willing to say, okay, let's hope this doesn't turn into a 10-game losing streak, and of course that'd be followed by a 15-game winning streak. But I do like the Flyers tonight at a small price at home against Toronto.
Now something's got to give here. Flyers, that's one thing. One loss turns into a bunch usually for them. We'll see if that trend continues tonight. I think this is a chance for Toronto to finally get up off the saddle and find a way to win. Last 3 games, all 1-goal losses, 2 of them in overtime, St. Louis and Columbus. I think this is the spot for Toronto, but we'll see what happens. The Leafs, of course, have got to find a way to put the puck in the net, and we know that's been a little bit of an issue for them as of late. It's weird because, the Leafs were just scoring goals left and right earlier in the season, and, they haven't gotten above 3 goals in the game now in 8 straight. So for a team that's got the weapons that the Leafs have, a little bit of a surprise for sure.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.